Hi, everyone. Welcome to Foresight's new grant and Nomadi Prize announcement seminar. This is a really interesting one. It's like a new, I think, experiment that we're doing because we are, for the first time, really trying to have a collaborative seminar across our intelligent cooperation and across our neurotech groups. In the spirit of interdisciplinarity, intelligent cooperation group, you're meeting our neurotech group, a neurotech group, you're meeting our intelligent cooperation group, or at least a few members within those. And many of you are already in and across both of these groups, but not all of you. Okay, so let me cut to the chase. What I'm trying to do in the next, let's say, 40 minutes or so. So I'm going to try to give you a brief overview of a new grant program that we launched within our intelligent cooperation group and within our neurotech group. And then I want to give you a brief overview of the Norm Hardy Prize, which is a new prize that we're launching, which is specifically focused on computer security. Okay, with that, I should probably start sharing my screen. I will start with about a 10-minute intro to our new AI safety program. Then we have 10-minute Q&A, then 10-minute intro into the Norm Hardy Prize, 10-minute Q&A, and then we have about 15 minutes or something at the end for general Q&A or anything that you may want to discuss after that. All right, so on our website, under grants and prizes, you should now be able to find the AI safety grant. And so we're very happy to be launching this new AI safety grant program. And this is the official launch video now, but we have had this kind of cooking now for a few weeks to months. And we're focusing on 3 different areas. And I'm going to walk through the 3 areas first, and then I'm going to discuss a little bit on how you can perhaps apply if you're interested. So the first area that we're hoping to support, and we're hoping to support relatively fast, is perhaps the most out there or ambitious area. And so I think one thing that we're really trying to do at Foresight is trying to help to support undervalued and perhaps underexplored areas. And this is, I think, one that really hits that mark really well. And that's the area of neurotechnology, whole brain emulation, lo-fi approaches for AI safety, but also including some neuroscience approaches to AI safety, really. And so here the idea really is that recently, I'm sure that many of you are aware, people have updated their AGI timelines towards earlier development, raising safety concerns. And that has also led some people to consider whether neurotechnology, in particular whole brain emulation development, or lo-fi approaches to whole brain emulations that could be more cost effective, could be sped up, producing more of a differential technology development and reordering that might lessen the risk by the presence of aligned software intelligence. And so this is a lot, I think, to process, but it includes a few different areas. For example, when we think about this, we think about whole brain emulation as a potential technology that may generate software intelligence, which is human aligned, simply by being based directly on human brains. And so that's the kind of whole notion of whole brain emulations that some of you are familiar with. Then we also are considering lo-fi approaches to uploading. And so this is perhaps a little bit more speculative and perhaps a little bit newer. And so for an example here is that you may have extensive lifetime video of an organism that could be used to train a model of that organism without referring to biological brain data. And then you have other neuroscience and neurotech approaches to AI safety. So for example, brain-computer interface development for AI safety as well. And then there's always 2 categories that we have in each of these individual 3 buckets that I'm currently going through. One of them is other concrete approaches in this area. So this area is very new. Those are just 3 examples that we can come up with. You can probably come up with many other ones that are probably much better. But then also we want to support general scoping and mapping of opportunities in this area, especially from a DTD development perspective. Or you can also tell us where we're wrong. We definitely very much welcome you exploring why this area may not be impactful. And so you can literally just apply and can mark your interest as telling us hey, I want to tell you why this area is actually not impactful at all, or it's actually actively harmful, or I want to map a few different areas in this space that are currently not considered yet. I don't actually think any of those will do it, but there's another area that I want to kind of map out more. And so because this area is very new, we do welcome a lot of general scoping. And so you can be quite creative, I think, in what you're proposing there. Just be mindful that these grants are focused on relatively short AI timelines. And I'm going to say a little bit more about the general grants a little bit later. But if you're more interested in roughly grokking what the space is about, we had a workshop on whole brain emulations earlier this year. And so this was a workshop that we had in Oxford. It was co-hosted by Anders Sandberg and by Foresight. And here we have a little bit more of a description of these goals. And if you're interested in diving a little bit deeper into a few of the different kind of considerations that are at stake, we have a lot of the different videos now online on that whole brain emulation workshop page. And so you can pretty easily get to that. And perhaps I can share it in the chat, or someone else can perhaps share it in a little bit. But this is like just a little bit more info on this workshop. We're also working on a report about this workshop that should be out soon. So there will be a little bit more kind of like just, I guess, examples of things that you could be working on. But then there's a ton of like other really amazing writing on this topic. For example, ADK has a website on this. Then there's, I think this one was from YDI. We at least had it here as like a second approach to this. So even though it's pretty new, people have actually talked about this a little bit. And especially recently, there has been an uptake again on like different people like actually exploring different neurotech and neuroscience approaches, such as, for example, Steve Burns, who we had in our neurotech group as well, which is a little bit more different, but it's more on kind of like brain like AGI. Anyway, this is just to say that there's a ton more kind of reading that you could be doing on this topic if you're interested. And I'm happy to go into each of the individual readings a little bit later in case you're interested. But for now, I just want to point you to them. Okay, so that's the first bucket. Now I'm going to briefly summarize the second bucket. So the second bucket is on security, cryptography, and auxiliary approaches for InfoSec and AI security. And so it has this kind of like double approach that we are focusing on security approaches, but we're also focusing on cryptography. And auxiliary approaches is basically like a term for like, there's other basically like individual like areas that are like not quite cryptography, but that are doing different things to cryptography, but they're doing like related approaches to cryptography that are perhaps useful to explore for AI safety. And so here we're really trying to like hone in on the kind of like potential info security risks around artificial intelligences, but also around like new approaches in which we could use perhaps new privacy preserving technologies and to work on AI and AI safety. So the first one again is that we focus on is AI InfoSec approaches, and perhaps even a few security approaches that may scale up to more powerful AI systems. The second one is like even perhaps a different cryptographic approaches could be used for better coordination or governance architectures around different actors that are either AI entities or actors building AI entities. So like it's really like more on the governance angle. Perhaps there's a few areas that we could explore here as well. And then could also be a few approaches for privacy preserving verification or evaluation techniques of perhaps more powerful models. Again, there's these two catch-all. There's probably a lot of other approaches in this area that we haven't considered yet. And beyond that, if you just want to generally scope or map opportunities in this space, or if you want to tell us why we're completely wrong in focusing on this area, then you can also just apply to that as well. There's a ton of kind of like reading on this. For example, maybe I'll start with the workshop first. So if you're a little bit more interested in like diving into kind of like what that could mean and what we're roughly looking for that, it's more like that we shared a few vignettes of like different ways in which, or different kind of like areas that we think are interesting. And so if you want to get an update on those, we just hosted a cryptography security workshop on this earlier this year, like I guess a month and a half ago or something in San Francisco. There will be videos of that workshop published on the workshop page very soon, and including a workshop report. But if you're interested roughly in what these kind of like focus areas are that we discussed there and we thought were interesting, there's the agenda already out there. So just to give you like a rough grokking of that area. You can also go to our 2022 workshop of this kind. So we hosted a similar workshop last year, and here we have a bunch of the videos already online. So if you just want to like roughly explore what do these people even mean by that area, then that may be a good kind of like first approach to just go in there and see, okay, there's a few people that already think about this stuff, or at least about different components of this. Okay, then there's a lot of writing that's, I think, really quite interesting. I wrote this kind of like longer, like 4-part, like less long series on basically AI info security considerations, and then a few other individual bits, including AI safety and the security mindset, like different like intersections of the two mindsets that I think are like kind of like fruitful. And then boundaries-based security and AI safety approaches. Here, the idea here is that there's a lot of individual approaches to AI safety that rely on boundaries, including some work from Critch. But then in security-based approaches, you also have a lot of work that relies on boundary and on boundaries being upheld and set in a secure manner. And then there's a few other posts on specific cryptographic and auxiliary approaches to consider for AI. And then there's a lot of like other really interesting writing. For example, this one that I just want to point out by Jeff Laddish, who's I think also on this call on really InfoSec. And so he's really looked into this very, very deeply. And so if you're interested in this, there's a lot more kind of like reading that could be done around this stuff. Okay, so that's the second bucket of things. Now the final bucket kind of like things that we're interested in funding is safe and beneficial multipolar AI scenarios. And here we have the least content on this online for now, just because we're not really quite sure exactly like how one could even approach this. So this is perhaps still the most theoretical one for now. And while the other ones you could perhaps already be doing quite pragmatic and practical work, this one is perhaps a little bit more abstract still. And so here we rely even like more on you than even in the other areas to shape this more. But the idea here really is that we want to explore multipolar AI scenarios. So what if it's not like a single AGI that we get, but what if there's like a multiplicity of agents? How would these scenarios look if they ought to be safe and beneficial really for the constituent agents that are in these scenarios? And so this could involve things like multi-agent game simulations or game theory, really around like how these different agents could interact. It could avoid scenarios. It could include kind of like a little bit like fleshing out scenarios that would avoid collusion and deception. So I think one thing that people are really worried about is that eventually more powerful AI systems could collude against humans, could deceive them in more like collaborative ways that we may not be able to spot. So anything that like pushes against it would be useful to explore. Or on the other end, other scenarios that are like perhaps towards more Pareto preferred or positive sum dynamics that would also be really interesting to explore. Can we actually like create kind of like conditions or create architectures that make it more likely that different agents can like incorporate in a Pareto preferred ways? Positive sum may be more difficult if we don't actually like really know their internal working. So if we can't really do intersubjective comparisons, but at least like finding out like positive ways to cooperate would be really useful. Then general approaches for tackling principal agent problems in multipolar systems would also be really useful. And other concrete approaches in this area. Again, this is pretty young and nascent, I think, but we just want to encourage more work. There's a really wonderful like new organization from Andrew Critch and Cultured AI that I think is like a cool example in that space. Andrew Critch and Stuart Russell also wrote this really cool paper on open source game theory and what that could mean basically for AI cooperation. Then there's work from Hatfield and Dillon on incomplete contract and AI alignment. So basically, what's the kind of like difference between, what are like some similarities and differences and principal agent considerations between AIs and humans when we kind of draft contracts? And then, of course, it's amazing work by Drexler on comprehensive AI services. So like really laying out more, narrowly super intelligent services that help humans cooperate better and again, just have a little bit of a better working, very kind of like diverse economy, and then also Pareto-topian goal alignment. So what if we could actually use like the potential benefits of Pareto preferred interactions and like the kind of like potential increased benefits from cooperating given AI automation to actually like increase the kind of like incentive for folks who engage in Pareto preferred interactions. And so there's a lot of like interesting individual writings on this stuff. Again, it's pretty early stage, but I just want to encourage you to check this out if you like don't really quite know what we really meant this. Now, a few words on a few of the logistics around this grants program, and then I want to open it up to questions. So if you already want to raise hand or put your question in the chat, we can take you in, I guess, 2 to 3 minutes or something. But those are the 3 areas that I discussed that we like roughly want to focus on for now. Now, what do we do in these areas? And the idea really of the grant program is that we are hoping to give around 1 million. It's like a little bit still kind of changing about like roughly how much we're like trying to give out. But the idea is that we are really hoping to give out around like roughly 1 million in funding per year for supporting like projects across these 3 different areas. And so we're trying also to do this as soon as possible, really, or as fast as we can do that with a good conscience, given that short timelines may be now more possible than before. So we are trying to do this relatively fast. Then again, who can apply? So there's a bunch of different ways in which you can benefit from this funding. You can either be an independent researcher and we can guarantee that money as an independent researcher. You can be a part of an existing organization, or you could be trying to incubate a new organization and wanting to use that money to do that. Or if you're interested, we could also explore us hiring you or contracting you in-house through Foresight. And so we do have some limited potential, at least, to give research H-1B visas that are usually capped exempt. And so if you were, for example, in Europe, hoping to do that work in the US, that could be an option. It's obviously we can't guarantee that this is going to work, but like it's definitely something that we can explore. And we are hoping to give some priority to like work that is not within the US, just because there's some kind of like potential for perhaps getting like supporting projects, like perhaps that space is less saturated than the AI safety space within the US, or at least that's one hypothesis. But that doesn't mean that if you're in the US, you should not apply. You should absolutely still apply if you think that this is that your work is within that area. It just, we may give some priority to projects that are actually in Europe. Okay. When can you apply? You can apply all the time. So starting now, really, you can apply whenever you're ready, basically. So it's a rolling application. So the idea here is that I think most grant applications that at least I'm familiar with, they try to have a deadline. And after that, there's a kind of review process. We're trying to review pretty much on a weekly basis. And this may not mean that you will be getting an answer within a week, but we are looking at these applications on a weekly basis. And so the idea here really is that we're really trying to make this a fast turnaround process rather than a process that is perhaps like restricted by specific deadlines where you can only apply within the time frame. So please apply whenever you're ready. And we are trying to really get back to you with a decision within 8 weeks, latest. Often we're much faster than that, or hoping to be much faster than that. We have already, or in the process of funding 2 projects already, even before we have started this grant officially, just because we were benefiting from the non-linear AI grants where we signed up as a funder. And so for those 2 projects, at least, we were definitely within that time frame. So we are trying to be really fast here, or as fast as we can be, while still also being really diligent. You can apply by filling out the form on the top of this page. So there's the apply button here. It's relatively short. We're trying to make it easy for you. The idea here is that after you fill out the form, please don't spend more than 3 hours on this maximum. Many of you have filled out many forms already. And so you can just like copy paste a few of this stuff over already. So it should take you usually significantly less than 3 hours. But the idea here is that we will invite you for an interview as well to get to know you a bit better. And the idea here is that once we get your application, we will evaluate it, like a mix of our staff, but we also have a few external advisors. And so I just want to thank everyone who signed up to be an advisor already. They are they're experts across all of these 3 different areas, I would say. And we have a few of them listed here, by no means all of them. I would say maybe this is a third of our advisors, not quite half. We definitely have quite a few of them. So thank you if you're on this call, and if you are an advisor, I really appreciate it. And there's also many advisors that are not on that list here yet. And so the idea here being that we can ping people if they're working in that area and we have a question about a specific technical problem in that space. And so, we're reviewing them together collectively as a group and independently as well. And so we're trying to focus a little bit more on a few projects that are a bit more high risk, high reward, in the sense that they are more speculative, but would make a really big difference if successful, rather than trying to do spray and pray and fund a lot of different projects. And we're also really interested, and I said this before, about projects that are just generally scoping and mapping the space, given that the space is still pretty new. So the last thing I want to say is that if you're a potential funder or advisor, you're welcome to reach out to us. One thing that is that we have a funding pot for this allocated this year, and we're really happy about that, but that could grow. And so if you think that these 3 specific areas are interesting, and you're a potential funder and are interested in funding projects in that space, but you're not really quite so sure about how to set up the entire kind of grant making process, and then you're also welcome to just reach out to us, and we can definitely take on more funding, and your levels of involvement in that, and that could be varying. But I just want to mention it as a potential opportunity, and you can kind of email us at this email address here. Okay, this is all from me for now. Now I want to take a few questions, perhaps for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I want to tell you a bit about the Norm Hardy prize. So perhaps I'm going to stop share for now, so to give you an opportunity to either raise your hand or ask any questions in the chat, and then I can ask to unmute you as well. So if you want to raise your hand, feel free to do that now. Or if you want to ask questions in the chat, you're also welcome to do that now as well. Okay, we have a few questions already in the chat. So the first one is from Chris Carlson. I can answer it right now, and feel free to just unmute in case I didn't answer correctly, or in case you have any other question. This can be quite interactive. You can literally just chime in if you want. But Chris's question was, do we know who the grant reviewers are and how confidential the applications will be? I already mentioned that we have many of the grant reviewers on the website, but not all of them. And so if you prefer to remain, I guess, to not be listed on the website, and the applications will be shared with a list of the advisors, with a mix of the advisors that are on the website and others that are not on the website. And so if you're not comfortable with that, then you should probably not apply. Or you can email us to ask for special treatment, but we're not sure if we can accommodate that within the time frame. that would be, I guess, then if applying with multiple projects, should this be separate applications? I would say likely if you want them to be judged separately. That's a great question, which we often also face when we apply for grants. I would say yes, because it makes it a little bit easier to say yes to one thing and no to another thing. So yes, I would recommend applying perhaps separately with these projects. Yeah, I think that would be my answer to that. Because you can probably copy paste a lot of the kind of overlapping information and then just use the individual kind of like different information when it's actually the different project details. Okay, great. Marcus, you're asking for the application form. Is there any word page limit for the Halma catechism question? There isn't, but I think if you want to keep it brief, that would be wonderful. I think from having done a few applications myself to other grantors, I think it is just nice to keep it simple. I know it's very difficult to keep it simple. We all know the saying of, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. But I think really kind of like, if you want people to actually digest the content that you share, I would say it's in your own interest to keep it simple and to keep it relatively short. That's why we have an interview as well. So different to perhaps most other grant applications, at least I know on, we do have an interview. So we will invite you for an interview as well. And so there we will have an opportunity to ask you more questions. Okay, great. Then we have another question from Sharma. Can we reapply if there are reviewers' comments addressed if we're not successful the first time? Yes, you can reapply. The application form is open. We will probably review it and then we will decide if it's sufficiently different than previous applications. And so one thing that we're experimenting with, which is why we have the interviews, is that we are basically sending the application. So we're reviewing the application internally as the first stop, and we're sending it out to a few reviewers or like advisors that we think have a good kind of handle on this type of proposal. And then we book a call with you. And so many of the questions that the reviewers have, we will already have, hopefully, by the time that we have the call with you, meaning that we can ask you them in the interview. And also, if we don't have them by the interview, we can still ask them to you by email. And so there is an opportunity, kind of like a second loop, and so that we hopefully get some of these concerns addressed before we say no to you. And so there is a little bit of an interaction always that happens between the projects that are applying and between us. But it's a great question. Cool. Then we have another question from Marina. And please just feel free to interrupt me in case I didn't answer your question correctly. Just feel free to literally unmute. But Marina, given accelerating timelines, do you have expectations on the timeframes of the projects? That's also another great question. Yes, the shorter they work and the more practical and pragmatic they are, the better it is. So we are not going to fund, I think, things that probably will work out within 15 to 20 years. That's not really the scope of this program. The scope is funding more high risk, high reward things that could work within shorter AI timelines. It doesn't mean that we don't think the other work is not also very valuable. It's just not within the scope of this specific program. And there is a question in the form that asks you specifically about how this project works within short AI timelines. And that is a very important question for us. Then, great. Okay, cool. Then we have a comment from Dean about the norm-hardy price, which I'm going to get to in just a second. Cool. Then what is the policy for overheads for applications from universities? That's another great question. We don't have a specific policy on that, but we are trying to be relatively nimble with our application. So the less big overhead we can have, the better. I think giving like between 30 and 60% to a university is, I guess, suboptimal. Potentially you can apply as an independent researcher, or you can apply to, in a different role. It's not that we will not consider these applications, we surely will, but it's just that it does add a lot, like a relatively big overhead. And so that is definitely like a thing that we will consider, but we don't have a policy around this. But if you can avoid it, then it may be better to avoid it. Okay, another question from Sharma. You mentioned organizations, which kind are eligible. Would startups be included, or only universities and/or NGO charities? Also, if independent researchers and in general, can there be teams or collaborative consortiums? Yes. So basically, we are, constrained within the law in terms of who we can fund and what kinds of grants or support we can give. But within that, we're pretty agnostic. And so we really want to give it to like the type of project that can make progress on the problem within relatively short timelines. And we'll probably have to discuss like how different types of organizations will be using the funds. But we are open to being as agnostic as we possibly can be in funding the kind of projects that would actually be able to use the funds best. And so whether you're an independent researcher or whether you're working within an existing organization, or whether you're hoping to start a new organization, or whether you're hoping to do that work within Foresight even, there are different ways in which we can kind of try to support you, given obviously the legal constraints that we're in. And so that may be like a better kind of question for us to figure out individually, because I don't have a blanket answer for all the different organizations and how we can support them in different ways. But it's a great question. Okay. I want to maybe give 10 more seconds or something in case anyone else has another question. Otherwise, I'll be moving on to the Noam Hardy Prize, which is our second project in this space. Okay, cool. No other questions? That's great. Again, I just want to thank everyone who has helped us launch this program. I want to thank the advisors that are like dedicating their time to helping us make better decisions on this program. And I want to thank every one of you who has already applied. Been really great to see so many applications already in the first few days. And so we're hoping really to
one more thing
to show you. Sure. Ask the question. Yeah.
I would like to invite everybody to ask also in the network if they want to contribute more to the grant, because I think at the moment it's not that much money, especially if people apply in the Bay Area. And if Foresight is willing to launder this money to, for instance, get people to work in the US or to get grants sent where they're needed, that is, I think, also a very great service that you're providing. It's not just that you give out little money that you've got, but so if we can get more people to invest into this important topic through Foresight, I think that would also be a great thing to do. And thank you for doing this. Another benefit I think that you are bringing in is that you are connecting people. And this, I think, is an invaluable service. And it might also be a good idea that you offer people to just subscribe to Foresight, basically to apply for a no money grant, in which you are offering services to bring AI safety researchers together to discuss, to network, to build structure, even when they don't want to impinge on your precious resources.
Thanks, Yosha. That's very, very sweet of you. And yeah, I don't think I could have said it any better, in the sense of this is an opportunity. If you don't have the kind of like logistical infrastructure to kind of like support this work, but you're interested in doing that, we have now had this platform that we're very happy for other people to use also to fund projects in those areas. So thanks, Yosha. That's very sweet. And I guess that also reminds me of two more things on this program. One is, please do share this opportunity with other people. So if you know of other potential researchers or people working in these areas that may not know about this, it would be really wonderful if you could share the opportunity further. And we'd really appreciate that. We don't really have a great foothold in all of these different areas. And so that would be very helpful. And then also, you know, a few of the things that we have already done is with a few people that have applied. We've also encouraged them, for example, to join our seminars, to apply to our fellowship, which is perhaps a bit more of the soft support that you mentioned, Yosha. And so we are happy to deliver a lot of that as well. So if you're perhaps a bit more of a junior researcher that could also benefit from some kind of like general soft support, networking, mentorship, and some kind of, more kind of, let's say, institutional support, then I think we can also discuss how we can support you in those areas. So that's definitely an option as well. Cool. All right, great. So with that being said, I want to move on to the second bit. So the second thing is the Noam Hardy Prize. And so perhaps we can switch gears for a second. The second bit is another program that we recently launched at Foresight, and that has at least some relevance for this one as well. So I want to kind of use this seminar as well to tell you a little bit about that other program that we're launching. And so that is the Noam Hardy Prize. And so first of all, I have to thank Agoric and Protocol Labs. Thank you so much. I think a few of you are on the call here from those two orgs. Thank you so much for allowing us to launch this new prize. So Foresight, like since our inception, we've done a variety of different things to support individual areas, from like fellowships to prizes and different kind of topical areas, to seminars, to events, to publications. And so this is our opportunity to kind of ramp up a new prize within the computer security area. So thank you so much for allowing us to do this, Agoric and Protocol Labs. So we are mostly the administrator of this program, of this prize. Well, Agoric and Protocol Labs sponsored it. And this is an annual prize that we're giving for usable computer security. Again, there's an application form here on the top if you want to apply. And the idea here really is that we're really lacking computer security. And I think Mark Miller always says it really well when he talks about this problem. And the framing of this price is that our society depends on the reliability and resilience of our infrastructure, which in turn depends on security. Unfortunately, our current software infrastructure is not only insecure, it is insecurable. No user interface can make an insecure system secure. We understand how to build systems whose foundations are vastly more secure, but we're likely to need new interaction designs so that people can use these secure systems securely. And so this is a mouthful, but it's basically saying that even if we are able to build secure systems, we are really bad at like design principles and the types of interaction kind of like design patterns that allow people to actually understand these systems and use them in a secure way. So even if we're able to build secure systems in theory, allowing users to use them securely in practice is another problem. And so this price is an annual price that we're able to, that are hoping to provide to people that builds like work that help users understand the security aspects of what they do, introduce workflows that make the secure way to do something the easy way, develop design principles for systems that are as easy or easier to use because of their security, or explore theory of mind with respect to how users interact with secure systems. And so it's basically like really trying to get into the interaction with a user and trying to figure out of like how we can make systems that already exist or potential new systems actually be used in a secure framework. And so you can submit a variety of different things to win this annual 10K prize. You can submit an actual implementation of a system. You can submit a user study of a system. You can submit like a kind of like theory of the mind of the user and so actually do a write-up or do a study on this. You can submit sets of principles for user interaction design. So like actually kind of submit like different principles that people should have in mind as they can like design secure systems. And this prize will be, the applications will close on September 30th. It's our first year of giving them, and we're hoping to give them at our 2023 Vision Weekends. And so we'll come with an invitation, travel paid to our annual festivals in a castle in France and at Foresight in San Francisco. And so please do apply. And again, like here, perhaps even more so than with the AI grants, we don't really have like 100% perfect or even 50% reach into these communities. So if people in the security communities and people that, you know, do really great work that allow like people to have a better understanding of their security implications as they're using systems, please do help us spread the word and help us share the Norm Hardy Prize in these communities. Now, who is Norm Hardy, you may ask? I have never had the kind of honor of meeting him, but Mark Miller, one of our senior fellows, he has, and many people within the Foresight ecosystem that have been perhaps a little bit around for longer than I have had the pleasure, and I've just heard pretty breathtaking kind of like stories around Norm. He must have been a really bright light in the kind of security community. And he was a computer scientist, and that was most widely known for identifying the confused deputy vulnerability, and has contributed like pretty dramatically to KCOS, a capability secure operating system that ran on commodity hardware, as well as key contributions to the creation of capability secure languages and protocols. And he also recognized the importance of extending good security concepts out into the user experience, requesting that the prize in his name encourage work in that area. And so I think Mark and Tim discussed the prize before he passed and many of the things that he deemed important in that prize now. If you're interested in reading more about Norm, I really encourage you to check out the medium Neurology and that Mark published about Norm, which was given at his memorial service and is here edited for clarity on there. So if you're like interested in a bit more kind of like information about the prize, then I really encourage you to read that Neurology here. And that's a really beautiful quote from Norm here. And I also want to kind of recognize two honorary mentions that have inspired a lot of the work and a lot of the prize that this work is hoping, and a lot of the work that this prize is hoping to honor. It's Kapigny and it's Mark Stigler, both of whom I think are like common names to many people in this community and like are dear friends of Foresight. But if you're interested in a little bit of more info on their work, there's a ton of background reading on the page. So if you're not really quite sure of what we mean by the prize, then there's at least a little bit like a few vignettes that could help you grasp the prize perhaps a little bit better. And we have a wonderful like a panel of judges. So thank you again, everyone. If you're a judge and you're currently on this call, thank you so much for helping us award great work in these areas. So that's all for me on the Norm Hardy Prize. Again, I can just repeat that it would be really meaningful for us if you are interested in sharing the prize page with other people that you think could benefit from this work and from the opportunity to win the prize. It will hopefully come with more and more recognition like over the years. and it's our inaugural prize. So we're really happy and excited about giving it out. Cool. So that's also me on the prize. If you have any questions about the computer security prize, then please do let us know. I think you can already probably see some similarities between the AI safety grant, which has a big InfoSec and computer security and AI security area, and then the prize, which is really focused on like usable security, even without the context of AI. So there's a strong kind of security focus within our work as of late and probably as of always. And yeah, so really encouraging you to apply to this prize, to share it widely. Obviously, if you're interested in funding this prize more, and if you're really into computer security, then this prize is also could stand for more funding than 10K a year. So if you're interested in topping up that prize, also just please reach out to us. Okay, any questions about the computer security prize? Maybe I'll give you 10 seconds or something to raise your hand or to ask any questions in the chat. All right. And I'm going to finish by just sharing that if you are interested in either of these opportunities, you should go to this fellows grants. There's the AI safety grant. Here's the Noam Hardy prize. Again, we have a ton of other prizes as well in longevity, in space, in landed challenge, and nanotechnology. We have the fellowship. We have our seminars in which we currently are in. We have a lot of like upcoming events, including like in-person workshops and including Vision Weekend, which is what we're all hoping to see you at, or we're hoping to award a lot of these prizes actually in person. So if you're joining us in France on September 17 to 19, or if you're joining us in San Francisco on December 1 to 3, we have a lot of you already joining us to kind of like celebrate successes across our different technological areas and to bring in a new year of technological progress. So please do join us. And I have a question from Dean. This is wonderful. Dean, please unmute yourself.
That would not a question, just mostly a statement about the prize, where I am, and I think Mark and others are just thrilled that Foresight took this on. I know we had lots and lots of conversations at Foresight Institute, not just events, but also just in the offices as long ago as the mid 80s or even early 80s about computer security. And it's been a long time backdrop of how do we secure AI and how do we secure the future and how do we secure molecular nanotechnology when it's being controlled by software that someone could take over. And so Norm was had such a foundational vision about how to build these more secure systems that it's in keeping with Foresight's mission. But I'm just thrilled because Foresight executes so well on these kind of prize programs that thank you so much for taking this on and giving us a place to drive that vision forward.
Yeah, thank you, Lon, for funding this entire prize together with Political Labs. It really, I think it really does mean a ton. And I think that oftentimes more so than the prize money, also just the recognition and like the community building that comes with the prize is really interesting. For example, our Feynman prizes, they also don't have a big price tag on it, but we've been giving them out, I think, since 1991 or 93. And over the year, they've really gotten to elevate a lot of like early work in that area. For example, I think our 2007 Feynman Prize awardee, Fedor Stoddard, then got the 2016 shared Nobel Prize for very similar work. And so we're really usually be good at spotting talent early and at awarding like more undervalued areas in that space. And I think for computer security in particular, I'm so glad that you mentioned this. Perhaps I didn't stress this enough. Like, I think when I came to Foresight now 7 years ago, I think I was really surprised at just how much security work was happening there, like under the hood, and how much people cared about that area. And if you, I think, look in engines of creation, if you look in any of our kind of even like very early like publications in our archive, computer security was always the layer that was like the necessary condition for any of the other technologies to go well. And this, I think, also holds true for AI, but it also holds true, for example, for all the neurotech and neuroscience approaches that we're working on. Unless we have like good privacy and good computer security for any of those technologies, I think we will be ending up in a pretty terrible future. And I'm so glad you pointed out the same for molecular nanotechnology. Like it's basically like the kind of like foundational layer that should underpin many of the other technological areas that we're working on. And so we're really happy that we can make this a strong focus now. I should say that if you are interested in reading more about this particular area, then there is also a lot of work that we have published on this actually within our book, Gaming the Future. And maybe I'll share that also here in the chat. But within Gaming the Future, there's an entire chapter on this stuff, defending against cyber threats, computer security, which is available on here, but where we talk about just the fact that the kind of fatal question of computer security is already behind us and how we can perhaps build better foundations from the kind of like bottom up. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to share that. Cool. Okay, we have another question from Jazir. Please mute yourself or ask the question in the chat, whatever you think is better. You're welcome to unmute yourself.
Yes. I am curious as to how you guys see these projects being funded for just AI security work or other kinds of work, just given that it seems like the pace of innovation is really coming from builders or products or things that are delivered for industry. It seems a bit ahead of maybe just pure safety research. I'm wondering where the line is for you guys.
Could you specify the question a little bit more? Where the line is between which two
Maybe
areas?
another question is in a normal program like this, I would expect a bunch of proof of concepts or research that is not actually taken to industry. It's more presented as a sandbox that doesn't have real users. But I imagine that some AI safety research would be attached to projects like, for example, the actual stability diffusion or an actual agent that's actually running live. How do you guys think about live versus purely experimental?
Now I get it. Okay, thanks for asking this. Great question. I thought I already maybe at least alluded to it, but I probably didn't make it clear enough. So maybe there's also a different answer to that, both on the security side and on the AI safety side per se, but especially for the AI safety program, we are assuming short timelines. And so short timelines mean that we will likely not be funding work in, at least within that program, that takes like 15 to 20 years. And so the kind of like very abstract work is not really, I guess, like the right fit for the AI safety grants program, at least. And especially for the multipolar stuff within the AI safety grants program, we were also first thinking that is probably still pretty abstract. But then we already got a bunch of applications that are really trying this out in the real world or like in the simulated world. And so the more practical, the more pragmatic, and the more reality, the more close to reality you can make your proposal, and like you can really show that it could work on short timelines, the better. That being said, if you think that there's actually like a conceptual breakthrough that is needed and in some abstract area, we also welcome you to apply. It's not to dishearten you from that, but I think we are really trying to take perhaps more of a practical, pragmatic, like experimental approach to the kind of projects that we're funding. So the easier you can show that this could actually work on a short timeline, it could be implemented on a short AI timeline, the better it is. But yeah, that's, I guess, my 2 cents on that. Okay, thanks, Jazir. All right, any final questions, comments, concerns, feedback? Okay, cool. Then we're actually staying under the hour. I'm really happy. I just want to thank everyone for joining. I want to thank you all for joining across one of our technical groups. Please share both of these opportunities with your friends, with your colleagues. It would really mean the world to us, because we are trying to kind of find talent also in perhaps areas where not other people are looking. And because these areas are quite, I think, still underexplored and undervalued, it is like sometimes difficult to find the right people for these domains. Even though we are already, I think I'm pretty flabbergasted by the applications that we already received so far. Please do apply. Please reach out to us if you have any questions around this. We're trying to make this kind of like pretty kind of like pragmatic and pretty good, you guys, to get feedback on and so forth. So thanks a lot for taking time for joining us for the double launch of our AI safety program and of the Nom Hardy Prize. Really happy to be relying on so many of you to like helping us in these efforts. Actually very happy and fortunate to be in such a great community, and really excited to hopefully be producing some great impact through that. Thanks everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Please share the video along if you can. And thanks everyone for kind of keeping an optimistic mindset about the future and working proactively, making it happen. Thanks everyone.